The other big problem we have is that here in America, economic success is defined by endless economic growth. Evolution has always worked by organisms using energy and resources to advance their own interests. But economic activity, like any kind of activity, depends on energy to make it happen. Endless economic growth would depend on an unlimited supply of energy, meaning an infinite supply of energy. The first law of thermodynamics proves that an infinite supply of energy can't possibly exist anywhere in the universe. The second law of thermodynamics proves that nothing can be recycled 100% efficiently. So we are still running down an economic dead end. 3 of the scientists from the Club of Rome decided to write a sequel 20 years later. There was a big environmental movement for them to report on by then. But when they started collecting their data, they could see that it wasn't such good news after all. The data they got that time showed that our environmental impact had already overshot the carrying capacity of the Earth. The resources we're using now are resources the environment needs to replenish our renewable resources. So they titled that book Beyond the Limits. They have another book out now called The Limits to Growth, the 30-Year Update. In aviation, we have something called the height-velocity chart. That shows combinations of altitudes and airspeeds from which test pilots have succeeded in making safe landings with simulated engine failures. Those 2 shaded areas show the combination of airspeeds and altitudes from which none of them have dared to attempt an engine-out landing. That means, if you ever let your combined airspeed and altitude cross that line, you have just volunteered to be a test pilot. Our economic impact on the environment crossed the line from potentially globally sustainable to globally unsustainable sometime in the 1980s. Even without the greenhouse effect, the population explosion would lead to too many people trying to squeeze too much food out of too little farmland. That means a global famine and global war as people fight over resources. That means we are in a global political situation that is fundamentally different from any other within the realm of human experience. That means if you're under 25, you've been volunteered as a test pilot. And still, people are debating whether or not evolution happened and whether or not global warming is really happening.